There we go. I wasn't recording, so I want to make sure I'm recording. You see, everything is a little off today. Students, I'm having a struggle. All right, now we're in business. Luckily, none of that was recorded. So nobody will know my struggles. Everybody will see the class beginning in a very normal way. Okay, the first, number 4, we have that word ever. Remember, this one is one of our...
Have you ever
sung in your church group? Right, S-U-N-G. Have you ever sung? Very good. Now the next one is sometimes. Sometimes sounds like simple present, right?
Yes. Walk.
Walks.
With S, right?
Walks.
Yeah. We need that S for third person singular, don't we? Walks.
Walk.
Now the next one is about tomorrow. What can we say about tomorrow?
I will be
washing.
I will
wash.
I will wash.
Wash my car, or I'm going to wash my car tomorrow. And then I'm going to get some gas. Okay. The next one has the word enjoy. What can we do with enjoy?
To have.
To have.
Enjoys having.
Having.
Right? Remember, enjoy is a word of emotion. All of those words of emotion use gerunds, right? Enjoy working, enjoy playing, enjoy singing, enjoy dancing. Enjoy plus gerund. Now the next one, we have no subject. No subject. Exactly. When we don't have a subject, we want to put, again, we have another gerund, two gerunds in a row. Okay. Here we have a gerund object, and number 8 is a gerund subject. In number 8, you could also say to have. Both are okay.
Going to cook. What will Nancy cook for dinner tomorrow?
Will, or
will
is.
What is going to cook?
Will or going to, no problem. The next one says never. What can we say with never?
Have never been. Have never been.
Has never been very friendly.
Has or have? Oh, has. Oh, yeah.
Singular, right?
Singular, yeah.
Mr. Smith. What about Mr. Wilson? We have the word lately.
Doesn't read.
Maybe. I would say hasn't read.
Hasn't been.
Hasn't read. Okay.
Let's see. The next one has the word plan. Gerund or infinitive for that one?
Will teach.
But we have plan.
Oh, yeah. Teach.
Plan to teach, right? Infinitive. Doesn't plan to teach his regular class tomorrow. The next one says gasoline prices. Gasoline prices. What can we say?
Will be increased.
Increase.
I mean, some people said have increased or have been increasing. It would be fine, but we don't have to be so fancy. We could just say are increasing. At this time means now, right? So we want our continuous verb. Number 14 says 2 years ago in an accident. 2 years ago.
I broke.
Sure. B-R-O-K-E. Exactly. Simple past. The next one says before.
Have you drink?
Very nice. Have you
Drunk.
Have you
drunk
this kind of wine before? Drink, drank, drunk, right? Drunk is our past participle. The next one, want.
And to get.
To get. The next one says, Mrs. Randolph, any vegetables in her garden?
Haven't
Haven't
planted.
Planted, right? Hasn't planted.
Hasn't planted.
Hasn't planted any vegetables in her garden for many years. Now the next one is last night and the be verb. What can we say?
Was.
Wasn't.
Wasn't.
Right? Wasn't, exactly.
Wasn't. Okay.
Number 19. Number 19 says, my parents, church, ever since they got married.
Have.
Attend.
Have
Been.
Have attended.
We could go two ways, right? Have attended, no problem. Or have been
Attending.
right? For many years. For many years.
Attending.
Have attended or have been attending. Next one, nothing fancy here. This is back to level 1. Now
Is eaten.
is eating, sure.
Is eaten.
Eating. Eating.
The next one looks like simple past to me. Last
I
summer.
saw.
Saw.
I saw.
saw.
Yeah, S-A-W.
I saw.
I saw the movie at the film festival last summer. Saw. Okay. The next one says Mary avoids. Avoid. Should I use a gerund
Driving.
or infinitive?
Driving.
Right.
Watching.
To
The
drive.
gerund. Gerund.
Gerund?
Yeah, whenever you have those words, stop, finish, quit, cancel, postpone, avoid, put off, delay, all of those words use a gerund. Stop talking, quit driving, etc., etc., etc. In this case, avoid driving. All right. The next one says not at all on the weekends. What can we say
Didn't
there?
study.
Haven't.
Did or doesn't?
Haven't studied.
Study.
Doesn't.
Haven't studied.
We want doesn't, right?
Doesn't
Doesn't
study.
study at all on the weekends. Doesn't. Simple present negative. Simple present negative because on the weekends is talking about every weekend, right? Now the next one, we have a noun and the word is. My hobby is. You remember this one?
Collecting.
Collecting. Another one with gerund, right? My hobby is collecting baseball cards. Collecting. All right.
Excuse me, teacher.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We say to collect.
Yes,
To collect.
yes, also correct. Yeah, when you have the be verb, you can use both.
Collecting or to collect.
So you can say my favorite thing to do on weekends is swimming. My favorite thing to do on weekends is to swim. They're both okay, right? My favorite thing to do is watching baseball games. My favorite thing to do is to watch baseball games. No problem. Gerund or infinitive is okay in that predicate noun position. All right, then the next one says recently.
The class
Has very.
has been
Right?
has been very difficult recently.
Present perfect for recently. All righty. Questions or problems?
A lot.
A lot. Remember, the best way to use these to learn is once you write down all the correct answers, look at it afterward and think, okay, why was this answer this? Why was this one that? Why is the answer to number 7 present tense? Why is number 8 didn't? Right? So if the more you internalize these rules, the better your life will be. All right. Are you ready?
Kind of.
Kind of. before we jump into the lesson, I want to review something that's important because this is something that's going to be very critical going forward. So I'm going to share the board here for a second. And I want to remind everybody of something that's going to come in handy here in just a minute. Okay. All right. Okay. Remember, every verb has a variety of forms. Some verbs have fewer and some verbs have more, but every verb has a variety of forms. So let's talk about each form, just so we have the language, that we know the language, right? Remember, in the dictionary, what we see in the dictionary is called the base form, right? For example, talk, or an irregular verb, for example, eat, right? That's called base form. The thing that you see in the dictionary. That's called a base form of a verb. We use it for a lot of different things. But base form simply means no changes. No changes, just the verb. All right? Remember, something that looks very similar to the base form is the infinitive, right? Remember, infinitive is always with the word to in front of the word. Let's see. Here a little bit. There. All right. Infinitive always has the word to. So when I say infinitive, that's what you need to think. To eat, to dance, to run, to jump, to play. That's called infinitive. Gerund, remember, whenever I say gerund, whenever you hear me say the word gerund, we want to think of the ing form. But there's another name. Now I'm going to have to move this further along. Present participle. Present participle looks exactly the same as a gerund. They're used for different reasons, but you don't need to worry about if it's a gerund or a present participle. You just need to remember ing. But they have two different names. We have our present tense singular form, of course, with the S. We have our past tense form, ed with a regular verb, and various verbs with various forms with the irregular. And then we have the one that I want to concentrate on tonight, and that is ah. Ah! Oh, students, that's horrible. Oh man, that's ridiculous. All right. Oh, laugh at your teacher. All right.
It's Monday.
It's Monday all day long, man. I'm telling you. Okay. All right. Let me fix this. Okay. So our base form was talk and eat. And what was the second one I mentioned? Infinitive, right?
Infinite.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was
There are
to talk and to eat. And the gerund.
To eat. And then you're
Whoops. I forgot to write to talk.
to talk.
To talk and to eat. And then talking and eating. And then I had the present singular.
present
Yes,
participle and
yes.
after
Present,
Pre- Present participle.
present
Oh, the present
participle.
participle, sorry. The present
After
participle.
that, present singular and past.
Present participle looks the same as the gerund, right? The difference is the gerund is a noun and the present participle is a verb. Let's see, where are we now? Present singular.
Singular.
Present singular.
Singular and past.
And that is TALKS and EATS. And then the past. And that is TALKED and ATE. Okay, now what I want to talk about tonight is the last form, the past participle. Remember regular verb? No problem. Irregular verb, you got to be a little bit careful, right? Sometimes it's the same and sometimes it's different. So what I've written on the board is every form of talk and every form of eat. There are no others, right? There's only this many forms of each verb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And sometimes for regular verbs, you only have 6 forms because the past and the past participle are the same, right? So that's 100% of the verbs in English. There are no other forms. That's why English is relatively easy to learn, because if you try to learn Spanish or French, every verb has all sorts of different forms. Somebody's birthday. All right. I think we can. Happy birthday. I don't know whose birthday it is, but I'm going to close that down for a second. Happy birthday to the person who is having a birthday, but I don't think we need to share the birthday with everybody. Okay, so key point here is that we want to talk tonight about the past participle, because the past participle is the last one we learn, right? We started learning past participle in level 3. Level 3, we learned about present perfect, and we learned to use present perfect with past participle, right? Have eaten, have gone, have seen, have taken. Now, here's the important thing. There are 2 uses of past participle in English. One, we've already learned, present perfect. We had a lot of examples today in our warm-up. But the other one is the one I want to concentrate on tonight. And I'm going to, does everybody have this copied down? I hope so. I'm going to stop the share. Everybody has it all copied down? No problem? All right, good. All right, so I'm going to jump into my presentation tonight. And we're going to talk a little bit about the second use of past participle. Drunk, eaten, taken, broken. And the second use of the past participle is what we call a passive. So let's talk a little bit tonight about passive. So let me open up my presentation and we'll talk tonight about passive. We're going to get started tonight. We're not going to finish tonight, no way. But we're going to start tonight. Let me see here. All right. All right. Can everybody see the presentation? Passive voice changing focus of sentences. Everybody see? Give me a thumbs up. Yep. Okay. Very good. Very good. All right. So passive. Let's talk about it. First, we need to learn the form. We already know the form, but we just don't know we know because we're using two things we already know. We already know am, is, are, was, were, will be, right? We already know that. And we already know the past participle, drunk, eaten, spoken, etc. So what are we going to do? We're going to put them together. Be and past participle. Not have. Have is present perfect, right? Now we're going to use be. So instead of saying have seen, we will say was seen. Instead of have eaten, is eaten, or whatever, right? We're going to still use the past participles. Again, regular verbs, we're going to use EDs. And irregular verbs, again, we have many, many possibilities. You see my big list here of lots of past participles, right? Those verbs in the red are past participles. And again, don't worry about copying these down. I'm going to send you these slides right after the class is over, so don't panic about that. I will send you these slides, I promise. So again, what are we going to do? Be verb and past participle. So is broken, was eaten, are sold, will be sung, was fed, were made, etc., 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 etc. Be verb, past participle. Okay? All right. So let us take a look at what we're talking about when we talk about passive. Using passive voice. Okay. In English, we use passive voice when we want to focus on the object instead of the subject. The object is more important than the subject. What do I mean by that? Right? This is what we call active voice. John sold the most hot dogs. Right? John is the subject, and this sentence focuses on John. But I could say the same thing using what we call a passive voice when I want to focus on the hot dogs. Right? So I just switch it around a little bit. The most hot dogs were sold by John. See what I did? Now I'm focused on the hot dogs. John is still in the sentence, but he's not the subject anymore. Now the hot dogs are the subject. Let's look at another one. The zookeeper feeds the animals every day. Here, my focus is on the guy, the zookeeper. Right? But what if I want to focus on the animals? I just have to change my sentence a little bit. The animals are fed every afternoon. Right? I didn't even mention the zookeeper. Right? Maybe I don't have to mention him because, of course, we know who feeds the animals. The zookeeper does. Right? So notice, sold is simple past. Were sold is past tense, passive. Feeds is simple present. Are fed is present tense, passive. Be verb, past participle. Be verb, past participle. And what do I mean when I say be? Am, is, are, was, were, will be, can be, might be, may be, should be, right? Those 5 words. Am, is, are, was, were, 6 words. Will be. Okay? So, active, the person is the subject. Passive, the thing, the food, or the animals is the subject. We still have a noun as the subject, but the noun is not doing anything, right? The hot dogs are food, right? John is doing the work. The animals are only eating. The zookeeper is doing the work, right? So the person who's doing the action is not the subject anymore. The receiver of the action is the subject. Let's go into this in a little more detail. Be careful. Not every subject in English can be a passive. Only sentences in which a verb has an object. And remember, what is an object? An object is a noun, person, place, or thing, that is after the verb. A noun that is after the verb. So, for example, Luisa sells tamales every weekend. What do we see there? We see an object. The object is in red, the tamales. It's a noun after a verb. But what if I want to put tamales in the first position? There we go. I made a passive. I made a passive because I have an object and I made it the subject. My object is tamales and I moved it from here to here. I moved the object to the subject. But look at this one. My baby slept very well last night. No object, so no passive. I walk to school every afternoon. No object, no passive. My son and his wife live in San Dimas. No object, no passive. So you can't make every sentence you see into a passive. Verbs with objects are called transitive verbs. Sell is a transitive verb. Verb with no objects are called intransitive, right? Sleep, walk, live, those are called intransitive verbs. And only transitive verbs can be passive, right? These verbs have objects. No, sorry, this has an object, sell. These verbs, no objects. No object, no passive. So you cannot automatically make a verb passive. It has to have an object. So, for example, if I say, Luis makes good pizza, right? I got an object, so I can make passive. But if I say, Luis works in downtown, there's no object there, so no passive. Okay? All right, let's go to the next slide. Now let's look at it even more carefully. Changing an active to a passive. Active verbs are what we know as normal English. 90% of the time in English, we'll use an active verb. I put the person, the action, and the thing, right? Jorge drives his car, right? That's an active sentence. 90% of the time, we have active sentences in English. But let's show how to make a passive. 4 steps. Step number 1, I put the object into the subject position. What does that mean? I put the object in front of the verb. Usually the object is after the verb, but I'm going to put it in front. I add be in proper form. What does that mean? Am, is, are, was, were, or be. I change the action verb to the past participle. That's what I was talking about before. For example, done. Done, taken, eaten, spoken, broken. Past participle. And finally, I add by and the original subject, which is optional. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. All right, so let's break it down. Here's an example. Henry drew this picture. Okay, I'm going to turn on the microphones for just a second so I can ask you a question. All right, students, in this sentence, what is the subject?
Picture.
True.
Henry.
Henry
Henry.
is the subject, right? What is the verb?
True.
Drew.
Drew.
Drew. And what is the object?
Picture.
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 Subject, verb, object, right? Do we all agree? The subject is in front of the verb and the object is after the verb.
Yeah.
That's a normal sentence. Those are 100% of the sentences we learned in level 1 and level 2 and level 3, right? The subject, the object, the subject, the verb, the object. That's basic English form. But let's try to make a passive. Let's watch carefully. I'm going to turn my mics off again.
This picture.
Now let's watch. Okay. Here's the passive. The picture was drawn by Henry. Let's see how we did this. What happened? Step 1. Look what I did. I took the word picture and I put it in front. I took the object and I moved it to the front. What is step 2? Put in the be verb in the proper form. What's the be verb? Was. There's my second step right there. I put in was. Step 3, what did I do? I changed drew, which is past tense, to drawn, which is a past participle. I changed my action verb to past participle. Okay? And finally, my last step, I took Henry from the front and I put him way at the back. And I add that word by. The picture was drawn by Henry. It's almost like looking at it at the sentence in a mirror, right? Everything is backwards. The object is in front and the subject is in the back, right? I flipped everything around. Why did I flip everything around? Well, there's a number of reasons why I would do this, but this is how we do it. We put the object in front, be verb, past participle, by original subject. Object in front, be verb, past participle, by the original subject. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just like a math problem. You do these steps and you're always going to have a correct answer to your problem, right? If you forget the steps, that's where you get into trouble. All right, so keep these 4 steps in mind. We got to memorize these 4 steps. All right, reasons to use passive. Let's talk about it. Like I said before, 95% of the time, I don't want to use a passive. Passive doesn't sound good most of the time. But sometimes it's necessary. When is it necessary? Notice what it says. Most of the time, we don't want to use passive voice. However, sin embargo, there are a few situations where passive is better than active. What are they? Situation number 1. When the person doing the action is not known. I don't know who did it. I don't know. For example, oh no, my bicycle was stolen. Right? Of course, I could say somebody stole my bicycle. No problem. But that somebody really doesn't do anything because I don't know who it was. So an easier way to write is just my bicycle was stolen. Right? My bicycle was stolen. When the person doing the action is obvious, you don't have to mention him because of course. What do I mean? Something like this. My mail is usually delivered at 2 p.m. Right? Of course, the postal carrier delivers the mail, the postal worker. I don't have to say the postal worker delivers my mail every day at 2 o'clock. Of course he does. So I don't even have to mention the guy because that's obvious. That's obvious. When the person doing the action is not important. For example, this blouse was made in Italy. This blouse was made in Italy. Who made the blouse? Not important. It's not important who made the blouse. My point is, this is from Italy, right? Who made it? I don't know. Somebody at a garment factory made it. But my point is, it's Italian made. It was made in Italy, right? You see those t-shirts I see sometimes, Hecho en Mexico, right? Made in Mexico, right? Finally, when the action applies to all people. In other words, I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm talking about everybody. For example, textbooks can be bought at the student store. Textbooks can be bought at the student store. The action is for everybody, right? It's not just one person. I'm talking about the action in a general way. The textbooks can be bought at the student store. Can be bought. Okay, no problem? No problem? All right, very good. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, let's look at simple present. Simple present is going to use what? Is, are. Am, is, are. Let's take a look. What time is the schedule usually posted? Is past participle. The windows are washed twice a month. Are past participle. Remember, past participle with regular verbs, ed. I am often called by telemarketers. It's very annoying. Am called. Be verb, ed. Am, is, are, past participle. And these are all regular verbs so far, so ed, ed, ed. Are the vegetables always planted in April? Question, using are. The mail isn't delivered on Sundays. Now, I want you to notice something important here. Remember, in simple present, we usually use do, does, don't, doesn't, but not in passive. Not in passive. Here's my little note. Notice we aren't using do or does or don't or doesn't. No do, no does, no don't, no doesn't. Passive is only am not, is not, are not, right? No do, no does, no don't, no doesn't. Right, so keep that in mind. Muy importante. We never use do and does in passive. Sometimes you see a question and you say, oh, I should say do. Not in passive. Am, is, are. Okay, so that's simple present. Am, is, are, past participle. All right, how about simple past? What do we need? Not am, not is, not are, was, and were. Was and were, past participle. Simple past. When was the Declaration of Independence written? Be verb, past participle. This one is irregular, written. The house was cleaned just yesterday. Simple past, ed. We were almost hit by a drunk driver last night. This one is plural, so we use were. Unfortunately, I wasn't picked for the basketball team. Wasn't picked. Again, notice we still keep the ed even though it's negative. Remember, with didn't, we don't do that. but with wasn't, ed. Were you called by the teacher before the class today? Again, be verb, past tense. The missing necklace was never found. Right? Was never found. Be verb, past participle. And again, what do we have? No did, no didn't. Only was, wasn't, were, weren't. No did, no didn't. Okay, importante. Okay. Next slide, modals. So we already had am, is, are, and past tense was and were. And here's our last one, be. Modals are going to be with be and past participle. So what are we going to have? Can be, should be, might be, could be, etc. When will the quarantine be lifted? That's a good question. I wonder. The house should be painted soon. Will be, should be, ed. If we don't get more students, the class might be canceled. Not true. We're fine. In fact, this class has one of the more biggest numbers in our school so far. So I'm very proud of you for keeping coming. But this is an example of a passive, right? Might be canceled. This medicine must not be taken by people allergic to sulfur. Must not be taken. Again, be and past participle. Raccoons can be found all over North America. Can be found. Cute little raccoon. Raccoons are terrible animals. I hate raccoons. They just destroy your house. All right, let's practice. I'm going to turn on our speakers here. Hello, everybody. We all back?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you ready to do some practice? Okay, so what do we use all the time with passive? What?
The verb.
What kind of verb?
Oh.
Past
To past participle.
past participle,
Was.
right?
Mhm.
Past participle. And what's the first part?
Subject.
Six possibilities, right?
I mean,
The first part of the verb is am, is, are, was, were,
The
will be.
verb.
Okay, so the more you practice, the better you get. That is true.
Yes.
All right, so let's practice. I'm going to give you some active sentences. You're going to change them to a passive.
Okay.
All right, you ready? All right, here's the first one. The farmers will plant the corn soon. Okay, let's break it down. What is the subject?
the farmer.
The farmer.
What is the verb?
Plant.
Plant. And the object?
The corn.
The
Corn.
corn. Okay, so how do we make passive?
The corn.
Corn will be
The
planted
corn
by the farmer.
Will
will be planted
Will be
planted,
planted.
right?
Will
planted
planted
by
by
There
the
we go.
farmers.
Right?
Corn will
Corn will be planted soon.
By the soon.
Will be planted soon by the farmers. Will be planted.
Planted soon.
Will be planted. Again, remember the by part? I can put it in or not. It's not important. It's my decision. If I think it's an important thing, I will keep it. If I don't think it's important, I will leave it out. All right, so will plant becomes will be planted. All right, let's try another one. Let's try another one. We lost the game in the last minute. We lost the game in the last minute. Okay. What is the subject here?
The game.
We.
We.
game.
What is the verb?
Game.
The game.
What's the verb?
Lost.
Game.
Lost.
And what's the object?
The game.
The game.
The game.
Okay. So is this past, present, or future?
Past.
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 Okay.
Pass.
So how do we make a passive?
The game
In the last minute.
was
We lost the
In the last minute.
last
The
minute.
game was
last
lost
minute
in the last minute.
was
Exactly.
Lost.
The game was lost in the last minute. The game was lost in the last minute. Was lost. Was lost. Be verb, past participle. The game was lost in the last minute, right? In the last minute is not the object. Remember, objects don't tell me when or where. Objects tell me what or who, right? So here, for example, what will we plant? The corn. What did we lose? The game. So the object is always what or where or who, not where or when. All right, let's try this one. This one is a negative. It's also past, but it's negative. The students didn't understand the story. The students didn't understand the story. Hold on. Let's wait a second. All right, let's go step by step. What is the subject?
The student
Student.
What is the verb?
didn't
Didn't understand, right? Understand is the verb. And what is the object?
The story.
The story. Okay. So how do we make it into passive? First, we put the story in the front, right?
The story.
The story.
Story.
Weren't.
Is it singular or plural story?
Wasn't.
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 Where?
The singular.
In
The
the
story.
students.
I'm confused.
No, it's
The
the story.
story wasn't understood by the students, right? The story is the new subject. So the new subject is singular, so we say wasn't. Right? The students is plural, it's true, but the students is not the subject anymore. Now the story is the subject. The story wasn't understood by the students. The story wasn't understood by the students. Object in front, be verb, past participle by the original subject. Object in front, be verb, past participle by original subject. Okay? Carlos always sweeps the floor. Carlos always sweeps the floor. All right, what's the subject here?
Carlos.
Carlos.
What's the verb?
Always.
Sweep.
Sweeps is the
Always
verb, right?
sweeps.
Remember,
Yeah.
verb is an action. The action is sweeps.
Sweep.
And the floor is what?
Subject.
Object.
Subject.
The floor is the
The
object,
object.
right?
The object.
Subject, verb, object. And what is always? Do you remember from last week? What's always?
Simple present.
Always is an adverb, right? Remember
Adverb.
adverbs from last week? We studied adverbs last week. Always is an
Yes.
adverb, right? So the adverb is not going to change. Always will just stay where it is. All right, but we're going to move floor to the front. And what kind are we going to use? Am, is, are, was, were, or be?
Is.
Right.
Is.
The floor is
is
always
always
swept
by
by
Carlos.
Carlos. All right. So far, so good.
So far, so
So
good.
good.
So what do we have? We have be, was, and is, but the verb is always going to be what? Past participle, past participle, past participle, past participle. Doesn't matter if it's past or present or future. Passive verb is always past participle. Okay? All right, let's try 4 more. How about these? Can you do it? I hope so. You should always follow the instructions. You should
You
always
should
follow the
always follow
instructions.
the instruction.
Okay, so what is the subject here?
You
You, the verb,
follow.
follow.
Always.
Always.
Always is an adverb, remember? Always is an adverb.
Adverb. Yes.
And
The
instructions is what?
Is the object.
object. Okay? So we have subject, verb, and object. So how do we make passive?
The instructions were followed.
But hold it, this has should, so let's keep it should. The instructions should
Be followed.
should be followed.
Instruction
Exactly.
should be followed.
Always. The instructions always
Should
be
always be
the
followed.
the instructions
Right.
always
This instructions should always be followed.
the instructions always be
Right? Should is a modal, so we add be. Right? Should be.
should always
The instructions
be
should always be followed. Okay?
no.
Más o menos?
Somos.
Not too bad. All right.
So far, so good.
All right. Here's a negative. Let's be careful. Let's be careful with the negative. Remember what I said. No do, no does, no don't, no doesn't. Brazilians don't speak Spanish, right? They speak Portuguese in Brazil. So what are we going to say?
Spanish.
Spanish?
Usually spoken.
Should we say doesn't or isn't?
Usually spoken.
Isn't.
It's
Yeah.
not
By Brazilian.
Isn't spoken by Brazilians.
Brazilian.
Right? Spanish isn't spoken by Brazilians. Spanish isn't spoken by Brazilians. Let's try this one. Can students use these computers? Question. All right, so what's the subject here?
Students
What's the verb?
use
And the object?
Computer.
Computers. Okay. So let's keep can in the same position, okay? Because this is a question. We don't want to move can out of the question position. So what can we say? Can
Can
the
computer
Be
can
used.
computer
be used?
Be used by the students.
by the
Exactly. Can these computers be used by students?
be used by students?
Can these computers be used by students? Right?
No.
We have
Then this could be okay.
we have can. We don't move can because it's still a question. But we just change the computers and the students into different positions. Instead of can students, it's can computers. Instead of use, it's be used. All right. One more practice. 3 people witnessed the crime. 3 people witnessed the crime. What's the subject here?
People.
People. What's the verb?
Witness.
Witnessed. What's the object?
Crime.
Crime. Perfect. Okay. So what do we have?
The crime.
crime.
The crime was
Wait.
witnessed
By
by
3
3 people.
people. The crime was witnessed by 3 people. Again, every time, what are we doing? We are changing the position of the subject and the object. Subject is now in the back. Object is now in the front. Right? I'm changing the position. I'm changing the position of the subject and the object. And like I said, 95% of the time, you're not going to do this. You're going to have just a regular active verb. But we need that passive verb. We need that passive verb when you want to put the focus on the thing, right? Notice, look at these subjects: crime, computers, Spanish, instructions, right? They're all things, right? A piece of paper, a language, a machine, and an action, right? They're all things. But a thing is the subject. The verb often is passive. Okay? All right. And here's a little passive in our closing statement. A lot can be accomplished when the passive is used correctly, right? A lot can be accomplished when the passive is used correctly, right? Passive, be accomplished. Passive is used,
Correctly.
right? You have two passives there, okay? All right, very good. The end of the show. All right. Okay, so that's passive, everybody. It's a little bit different way to think about the verb, right? Everything we had before, we were thinking about the verb as when the action happened. Did it happen yesterday? Okay, simple past. Did it happen every day? Okay, simple present. Is it going to happen tomorrow? Okay, future. But passive is not about time. Passive is about the subject and the verb and the relationship. Subject and the verb and the relationship. When we have a passive, the thing is the subject. Your pencil, your book, your glasses, that's the subject. When we have a verb, we have an object. A passive verb means the object has become the subject. Make sense? A little bit?
A little bit.
A little bit. A little bit. We're going to talk about this much more tomorrow, I promise. I promise. Because this is a lot to digest, especially for a new level 4 student. And I know there's some new level 4s right now listening to me. So if you are a new level 4, don't panic. If you are a 5 or a 6, this is review for you, right? We've talked about passive before. If you're a level 4, this is new stuff. So it's a little tricky. So it's going to take some time to understand. What I want to do in the time we have left is I want to do the first page of chapter 2, the first page of chapter 2 in our book. And then we'll do the listening and the vocabulary. And then we'll save the passive practice for tomorrow because that was a big presentation today and a lot of practice already. So we're going to save that passive practice for tomorrow. If you have time, you can do it before class tomorrow. Oh, speaking of which, on Thursday, we have to do something because as you know, I think I mentioned last week, I have to go to the doctor on Friday morning, right? For a check of my colonoscopy. You know colonoscopy, right?
Yes.
Right? So you know what you have to do the night before your colonoscopy, right? Drink all that terrible stuff, and you have to sit on the toilet all night, right?
Okay.
That will be me on Thursday night. So I cannot teach the class on Thursday night. So what I'm going to do instead is on Thursday afternoon, I am going to record a presentation and put it on the YouTube. It won't be an hour and a half long, but I will record a presentation and put it on the YouTube. And I will give you some practice homework to do, okay? But there won't be a regular class on Thursday. But I will record a little presentation and I will put it on YouTube for you to watch, okay? I promise.
Okay.
So class will be whenever you have time on Thursday. So I'll record it probably early Thursday afternoon and I'll send you the link. You can watch it whenever you have free time and then do the practice that I give you on Thursday, okay? So there will be no official class on Thursday, only a recorded video, okay?
All right.
Okay.
So and then you'll say, oh, poor teacher, he's going through. Oh, last time I did was 5 years ago, and I still remember. Oh.
You don't be afraid?
What? I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of the doctor.
To go to the
I'm
hospital
afraid of the toilet.
maybe for go to the hospital, porque if you got the coronavirus in the hospital.
Well, I'm not going to a section of the hospital that is coronavirus section. Then
I need to
I'm
go
going to
my
the
too.
radiology department. You know, I'm not going to the emergency room, so it's
Oh, okay.
so I'll wear a mask and etc. So I'm a little concerned, but hopefully I'll be okay. They want me to come in, so
You're
we'll
gonna be okay, Mr. Webb.
I hope so.
You're gonna
I
be
hope so.
okay.
Hope
Be
so.
careful.
Yeah, I will be careful. I promise.
What is that thing, teacher? To check up your stomach?
Your intestinal system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you have to empty it out first. And
Oh, okay.
anybody who's over 50 knows you have to take
Yes.
that test. And
Yes.
it's not fun. They put the little camera in there and they look around and they see if they can find anything.
It's like to check the cancer or something like that.
Oh yeah, who knows?
Color cancer.
It's just a standard checkup. When you are over 50 years old, every 5 years you have to do one. So
okay.
they're not worried about anything, but it's something I have to do on Thursday night. I got to take the medicine, and that means I'm not going to be able to be teaching the class because you don't want to see me running to the toilet every 5 minutes. You don't need to watch that. Give you a nice, clean lesson with no toilet breaks in the middle of the afternoon, and then in the evening you can just watch it and say a little prayer for me, please. All right. So anyway,
Just relax.
just relax.
Teach.
Exactly. Relax
Yes,
and take it easy.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Think positive.
So we'll have class today. We'll have class tomorrow. We'll have class on Wednesday, but Thursday is going to be only the recorded presentation. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So anyway, like I said, we only have about 15-20 minutes left before we're out of time today. So I want to do the first page of chapter 2. So let me open up our little book here and let's take a look at chapter 2. Okay, I got to open up the book first and then I will share it with you. I'm not sure what the page is. Maybe if you have your own book there, you can find it before me. It's going to be chapter 2, the first lesson, lesson A in chapter 2. Let me see here. Here we go. Okay, chapter 2. Here we go. Okay. All right. Okay, all set. Let me share this with you now. Okay, everybody ready?
Yes.
Here we go. All right, we're gonna do a little listening, but first let's look at the picture. Picture number 1. Where is the guy here?
In his car.
The car.
In his car.
He's
Driving. And what is he doing?
Turning up the or changing the.
He's turning up the volume on the radio, right? Right? Because he's going to hear an advertisement, and he's going to hear an advertisement for this place, La Costa Community College course schedule, and it's a course in hospitality and tourism. Where do you think somebody who had a certificate in that kind of job would work? If you had that certificate, where would you get a job? If you had a certificate in hospitality and tourism, where do you think you would work?
In a hotel?
Maybe a hotel. That's one idea. Any other places?
What page is this?
Oh, sorry. 18. 18, page 18. I'm sorry. The beginning of chapter 2, page 18.
Disneyland.
You might work at Disneyland, right? You might work at any kind of industry that caters to tourists, right? You might work at a restaurant. You might work at a tour company. You might work at a travel agency, right? There are a lot of different things you might work. All right. And let's take a look at the courses. There are 2 courses that are offered. All right. And the first course is Hospitality 100. That's the introduction course. And is there any requirements for that course?
Yes.
What's the requirement?
Pass English
You have to
placement.
pass English, right? All right. And when is this course offered?
Fall and spring.
Fall and spring. So both semesters, right? And do they have it in the morning or the evening or both?
In the morning.
Both, right? It's
Both.
Tuesday, Thursday morning, and Monday, Wednesday evening, right? And then the other course is the second course you take. And when is that offered?
Pass
Only in the morning.
Only in the spring and only in the morning, right? Only in the spring and only in the morning. Okay, so we got this guy Vasily who's interested in the tourism business, and he's going to talk to Mrs. Ochoa. Who do you think Mrs. Ochoa is?
Teacher.
Teacher or a counselor, maybe? He's
Maybe.
going to get some information about this class. And he's going to learn about the program here and learn what it's like to be a student at this school. All right? So far, so good?
So
All right.
so good.
So we're going to get out our pencils and we're going to take some notes. All right? We're going to take some notes and we're going to look for 6 pieces of information. Okay, so we're going to hear a radio ad and we're going to hear some information from, if you have your book, you can open it up to page 19. If you don't have your book, you can just copy down in a notebook the information when you hear it. Okay, so we have the certificate, the employment, where you work, the number of required classes, how long does it take, what is the cost per unit, what does it mean a unit?
Like a semester? Like,
No.
A unit,
semester? No.
A unit is the value of the class, right? So for example, in a class, maybe you go to college, maybe a class has only 2 units. Maybe a class has 5 units. Maybe a class has 3 units.
Oh.
That's the value of the class. And usually the units means how many hours you have class in a week. So usually if you have a 5-unit class, you have 5 hours of class a week. If you have a 2-unit class, you have 2 hours of class a week. And of course, a 5-unit class will be more work than a 2-unit class, right? So the units correspond to the class. So for example, our class would probably be a 5-unit class because we meet every day and we meet for 2 hours a day. So it'd be a 5-unit class. I've never heard of a class being more than 5 units, but usually there's usually 2, 3, 4, or 5, right? The biggest I've heard of is 5. The smallest I've heard of is 2. Although sometimes, like if you take like a very easy class, it might be 1 unit. All right, so let's listen to the conversation. We're going to hear first an ad on the radio, and second, we're going to hear a conversation with a counselor. So I'm going to turn off everybody's microphone so we can hear well, and then I'm going to play the music for you, okay? All right, not the music,
Okay.
the ad and the conversation. Okay, so let me turn off the mics for everybody so everybody can be nice and quiet. There we go. Perfection. Okay, everybody ready? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, all right. So here we go. Let's listen to this information. Here we go. So the first thing we're listening for is where you can work.
Unit 2, at school. Page 19, exercises 2A and 2B. Part 1.
Do you like to work with people? Do you enjoy traveling? Are you bilingual? Then La Costa Community College's Hospitality and Tourism Certificate program is for you. Our graduates find high-paying jobs with hotels, restaurants, airlines, travel agencies, and more. This growing industry needs leaders. It needs you. For more information about La Costa's certificate program in hospitality and tourism, call 866-555-6868 today.
Part 2.
Okay, so we've had only one answer so far. Let me turn everybody's mic back on. So far in part 1, we just had number 1 and number 2, right? Hospitality and tourism is a certificate. And what were the employment places they mentioned? I think they mentioned 4 places.
Hotels, restaurants, tourism,
Hotels, airlines, restaurants,
Agency.
and travel agencies, right? Very good. All right, so let me turn the mics off again and let's listen to the second part where we have all of the details.
Mrs. Ochoa?
Oh, hi, Vasily. How's it going?
Pretty well. I was in my car this morning and I heard an advertisement about a certificate program in hospitality and tourism.
Yes, it's a great program. Are you interested?
Yeah, but I have some questions.
Well, I'll try to answer them for you.
Okay, so first, what are the requirements for the certificate? How many courses are required?
There are 6 required courses, plus an internship.
An internship? What's that?
You work at a local tourism business for 3 months. There's no pay, but it's a great way to learn about the industry. You know, see if you like it.
I see. Are the classes in the daytime or at night? Because, you know, I can't quit my job and...
No problem, Vasily. Classes are scheduled at different times, and some of them are even offered online.
Oh, yeah? That's great. How long does it take to complete the program?
Well, it depends. I'd say, with the internship, between 1 and 2 years. Some people just take 1 class at a time, so it takes them longer.
Okay, that's good. How much does the program cost?
Well, let's see. There are 6 classes, and they're 3 units each. It's $50 a unit, so that's $900 for the certificate. Books are another $100 per class, and then there's parking and health fees. So the total is about $1,600.
$1,600? Wow, that's a lot of money.
Don't worry, there's financial aid for students who qualify.
Okay. You know, I think I'd like to apply. When's the registration deadline?
Let's see. Looks like it's December 15th for the winter semester. You have time.
But my English, is it good enough?
Well, you're required to take an English placement test, but I'm sure you'll do fine, Vasily. You're bilingual, you're very motivated, and you have good interpersonal skills. Hospitality and tourism could be a really good career for you.
All right. Very good. All right. Let me turn on our microphones here and see if we can get some answers out of you guys. All right. Let me turn off the sound here. Okay. All right. So, did we hear all the information? So we're up to number 3. How many required classes were there?
6.
6 required classes. Very good. Very good. And what else did they have to do?
Plus the internship.
Internship. Right.
Plus the internship.
6 classes
Plus
plus
the
Internship.
Right. And how long does it take to complete the program?
1
or 2
1
years.
or 2 years.
1 or
1
2
to 2
years.
years, right? 1 to 2 years.
1 to
Very
2
good.
years.
And what was the cost per unit?
$50
$50
unit.
per unit. So 6 classes, $50 a unit, plus they had additional expenses for books, for parking, for health fee, right? So what was the total cost of the program?
$1,600.
$1,600.
$600.
Fantastic. You got every one of them correct. All right, now let's look at this summary, and then we'll be done for tonight, and then tomorrow night we'll get really into the passive more. Okay, so let's take a look here. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. There we go. All right, so we have some vocabulary. Bilingual, we know that word is the same word in Spanish, right? Business, no problem. What about deadline? What's a deadline?
The last day.
The last day you can do something, right? High paying, that just means good salary, right?
Yes.
Industry is the same as a business, right? Interpersonal, right? Remember, if you have interpersonal skills, it means you're good talking to people, right?
Yes.
Internship, remember, that's when you practice at a place, right? My daughter had an internship before she started working. Motivated, when you're very excited about your job or your school, right? Qualify means you meet the requirements, and requirements are what you have to do. All right, so let's see if we can put these words into the story. All right, so it says here, Vasily hears a radio ad about the Hospitality and Tourism Certificate Program at La Costa Community College. The ad says graduates can find high-paying jobs in the tourism industry, right? The tourism industry. Right. Vallacy goes to see the counselor, Mrs. Ochoa. She tells him about the program requirements, the program requirements. Okay, and what does the program include?
Internship.
An internship at a tourism business, at a local business, right? An internship at a local business. Okay. She also tells him about the for registration, the last day, the
Deadline.
The deadline, right? And see, she says there's financial aid for students who
Qualify.
Very good. Qualify. Excellent. All right. And Vallacy is concerned about his English. Mrs. Ochoa tells him not to worry. Vallacy is bilingual. He is very
interpersonal.
Very motivated. Very motivated. And what kind of skills does he have? Good interpersonal skills. Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to turn off your mics and let's listen to this one time, and then we'll wrap it up here. All right. Turn off everybody's mic for a second. Okay. Well, let's listen to the story and think about the vocabulary words. Okay. Here we go. All right. All right. Let's listen to the story here.
Page 19, Exercise 3A.
Vasily hears a radio ad about the Hospitality and Tourism Certificate Program at La Costa Community College. The ad says graduates can find high-paying jobs in the tourism industry. Vasily goes to see his ESL counselor, Mrs. Ochoa. She tells him about the program requirements, which include an internship in a local tourism business. She also tells him about the deadline for registration, and she says there is financial aid for students who qualify. Vasily is concerned about his English, but Mrs. Ochoa tells him not to worry. Vasily is bilingual, he's very motivated, and he has good interpersonal skills.
All right. Okay. And push the button here. All right. And give everybody their microphones back. Okay. So, if you were listening carefully to that conversation, you will notice you heard a lot of passive. For example, Vasily asked, how many courses are required? Right? What is that? That's simple present tense passive. How many courses are required? They said 6 courses are required.
6
right?
courses. Yeah.
Are required is passive. Are required. Right? So when we have a be verb and a past participle, because notice, what was Vasily interested in? Was he interested in the teachers? No. He was interested in the classes, right? He was interested in the classes and the price and the time and the courses. So he was interested in the ideas and the things about this program. So he didn't ask any questions about the teachers. He didn't ask any questions about the staff or the other students, right? So a lot of the verbs that Mrs. Ochoa used were
passive.
Simple present passive. Because what was the subject? 6 classes are required, right? Students are expected to do an internship, right? These are simple present tense passive. Simple present tense passive, okay? So we had a big presentation today, so we didn't have much time for practice. But we're going to practice a lot tomorrow and a lot on Wednesday, okay? So that'll be enough for tonight, I think. And then I will send you those slides of the presentation as soon as we log off today. You can look at those slides tomorrow and then come back on Tuesday and be ready to practice and be ready to have some conversation, okay?
Okay.
Sounds good? Sounds good to me. Sounds fantastic. Okay, so we're going to see you all tomorrow, and we'll jump into passive with both feet, okay?
Okay.
No problem? Everybody feel good? All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming.
Good night.
I
Good
love
night.
you all. Drive safe. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, teacher.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Take
guys.
care.
Bye.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You as well,
This will be
teacher.
on YouTube in the morning, okay? Bye-bye.
Okay.